I'll be calling the next speaker, who is Professor Bernard Matolino from the University of Pretoria, South Africa. He'll be speaking to us today on the title, The Mind of Development, a Call for a Mental Shift in Africa. Professor Matolino, are you still here with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Please
please, you can speak to us, Prof.
Yeah. Give me a second, please, while I organize myself. Oh my goodness, where's my presentation?
Okay,
Just 1 minute, please.
no problem, Prof.
Okay, yeah, got it. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, colleagues, for inviting me and for having me here. I propose that we do it this way, that we think of the mind. Oh goodness, look at the bad spelling. The mind of development. Let's move away from bad spellings. Because I'm convinced that development is not material conditioning. It is also careful how. So I propose that we accept this first view that development is neither coincidental nor a product of nature. It's not something that's handed over to societies by the gods or something that comes from ab initio, where people start off uh, oriented towards development. No, on the contrary, it starts at an individual level and it goes to a collective committing themselves to a certain way of going about. Normally, societies are changed and transformed by individuals. It's individuals' responsibility to steer their fellow humans in a particular direction, uh, be it in collectivist societies or individualistic societies. There will always emerge people with a particular vision, and they challenge their fellow whether community members or citizens to move in that direction. And that way of going about is always a mental commitment. So when these people come along, they say there is a certain way of doing things that is wrong, or there's a certain way of doing things that we've been accustomed to that is wrong. Here is a better version of doing things.
Please, Prof, sorry to cut in here. Please, can you turn on your video if it's convenient for you? Thank you.
My video.
Yes, Prof.
Okay. Where is it? Okay, just give me a second.
Okay.
Okay, say start video here. Is that okay?
We still cannot see you.
Still can't.
Yes. It's on, but nothing is showing.
Oh, I don't know why. You're correct. It's yeah, no, I'd forgotten. You're correct.
If I might chip in, Bernard, there's a little
Yeah,
slide. Just check your camera. There's a little
yeah.
slide sometimes that slips over the camera. You have to manually handle it. That happened to me as well. You
A
know,
little what?
it's just a little slide. So you look at your camera.
Like
Just
this?
there should be a little opening and closing slide. You can
Now it
literally.
works. Now
Yeah,
we
you
can
see
see
me
Yeah,
you.
now.
it's open now. It's open. Yes.
Oh, excellent. Do you see me okay? Oh, it's bad.
Yes, it's better. Thank you, Professor Abraham, for helping out.
Oh yes, thank you. That's lovely. You see, that's a developed mind right there. Well, this is family. Uh, so so I was saying that this going about is a mental commitment. Uh, and Kwesi shows this mental conditioning in his discussion of the habits of the Ghanaian mechanic. I think it's in cultural universals in particular, where he says every time he takes his car for repairs with every Ghanaian mechanic, they're resistant to accurate measurement. They rather prefer to use their eye to guess around and never want to use any instrument for accurate measurement. And it's not as if they do not have those instruments. It's just that they have a certain commitment which is not aligned with use of instruments to gain accuracy. So I think it's productive to look at the mindset for a moment. And here it's important to say, while Western philosophy has made the mind an intriguing personal thing that constitutes the I, and whose operations are hidden from observers, it shall not be so. So if you go to philosophy of the mind, well, one of the questions that intrigued Western philosophers for long is how you know that other people have got minds, uh, because the evidence for others having a mind or minds is just so slim. And I don't think it should be so. The very thing that I'm going to suggest here has been rejected by certain Western philosophers for long. For example, evidence of the mind, I think, and they reject this, is to be found in those moments where mental operations are shared. For example, the fact that I am speaking now in a philosophy seminar, and and what is my audience now, or my colleagues now can hear me, understand, and process what I'm saying. It, it shows that there is something fundamentally that we share. When I approach this conference, I approach it as a mental operation. And when you apprehend it, or when you apprehend what I'm saying, I take it that you are also engaged in a mental operation. So the fact of speaking, expression of ideas, sometimes understanding of symbolisms, understanding of my own intentions and your intentions. Sometimes when I say to you, oh, I didn't know that that's what you intended, or when you act in certain ways but I catch you out, that's an operation of the mind. So this means we are not hidden from each other. We see each other's thinking and operations. We even share in it by agreeing with it, or refuse to share in it by disagreeing or being baffled by it. So I can be baffled by the way you think as much as you can also be baffled by the way I think. And I think that speaks to the idea that a mindset is something that can be apprehended, and it's something that can be shared, and it's something that can be differed with, etc., etc. So we can therefore talk of an African mindset, and where we particularly see it is in African philosophy's commitments, uh, and here I think for a long time, even if you look at the early debates on African philosophy, for a long time, at the very least, there was an agreement that there is a certain type of thinking that typifies being African. And if one engages in this type of thinking, they are either African or they've taken an interest in African modes of thought. While these philosophers will tend to disagree about what constitutes that type of thinking, the belief that indeed there could be a separate mode of thought that could be identified as African is there. And I think in many ways it continues up to this day. So one finds the expression of that mindset in communalist doctrines, which are quite prevalent and which we know in African philosophy now. So I don't have to go through that. If this is true anyway, that's what I'm really interested in. If this is true anyway, it shows that people can collectively participate in a particular idea. Now, it doesn't matter whether they agree or disagree on that idea, but what matters is that they've accepted that idea as worth of participating in. And this is what now constitutes what I call their collective mindset. So this collective mindset shows movement either in degenerative or generative ways. Indeed, it is possible that people can remain arrested at the mental level, or they can begin to degenerate, or they can generate themselves in so many ways. I want to give an example here of a moment of degeneration. The recently deceased Catholic Pope Francis, showed a moment of keen awareness of reality by taking his church in the direction of accepting the reality of the existence of same-sex identifying people, or let's just call it non-heterosexual people. And this, of course, generated debate in his church, particularly in Europe and the USA. When it came to Africa, he said something that was intriguing. He said he is going to exclude Africa from this discussion because one has to understand that Africa as a place has got certain cultural values and commitments which probably won't allow them to engage in this kind of discussion. When he said that, I was deeply ashamed to be African at that moment because, and he doesn't say this from Norway, he doesn't suck it from his thumb. This is impressed upon him by his own African bishops. So the African bishops who go to the Vatican to report to him are the ones who insisted up to a point that their boss saw that this was a non-starter, that the African mindset is not open to the possibility of same-sex relations. And for me, that is a moment of degeneration. I do admit that there are activists and thinkers on the continent who are trying to challenge that moment of degeneration, but that is a moment of degeneration which is widely shared amongst Africans. So either it becomes degenerative or generative. This collective mindset does so on its own, or at times it does so as a result of outside influence. It can register moments of innovation or moments of complete decay. And here I cite Hume, who says there are three stages of one can call it human development or human social development. There's infancy, youth, and adulthood. And he says one cannot know where we are at. If you live in a particular time, you do not know where you are at because of obviously historical conditions and obviously human life being so short. And one may also say this may be true of many civilizations, including African civilization, if there's such a thing, that we do not know where we are at, but we can also tell what our collective mental representations are, and they may begin to indicate where we are at as a people who engage in thinking. So we tend to development. Development is not necessarily material progress. And I have to hasten to add here that material progress is indeed a part of it. But development is essentially a mental orientation. And this mental orientation generates ideas that have got an impact on. So this mental orientation generates ideas that have got an impact on the material progress of a people. So this orientation is actually a mental commitment to a set of values that distinguish the developed and developing from the underdeveloped and underdeveloping. While the underdeveloped and underdeveloping can be seen in how their material progress or lack thereof registers in their everyday existence, what has got to be distinguished between different groups of people and how they register is what essentially is their mental commitment. This mental commitment is character that typifies a certain mode of thought that commits itself to moving from one station to another with less traces of the previous station. And my thinking here is that if we went seriously, particularly as a mental movement or as a mental occupation, what we must appreciate is that it essentially entails progress from one station to another. While this movement is not going to be linear, it has to be registered. It has to happen. Here is the intriguing thing about Africa. In terms of economics, there is agreement that all indices of measurement that speak to the qualitative well-being of life indicate that life was better just after colonialism for the average African.
Sorry, Prof. Sorry to cut in here. Please, you have 5 minutes more.
Oh, okay. Thank you. The closer you were to Independence Day, the better your life was. The further you are from Independence Day, the worse your life is. Now, that is interesting for all sorts of wrong reasons, because it indicates not a movement or in a positive direction from one station to another, but moments of degeneration, falling from one station to a station that is less than the previous one. If there's to be any progress, the less and less we see of the previous station as we move towards a new station, the better, the positive at least. It is also a careful balance between the interplay of tradition and modernity, which is so well appreciated by JT, which also other countries appear to have succeeded in perfecting. And here I've got in mind places such as such as Japan, whereas Africa still insists on its traditional purity. So in the 5 minutes left, I've got 2 slides, and I hope I got through them quickly. African development, it is to start with the phenomenon of Africa in relation to what the modern calls for. And here I could cite the authority of our brother Olufemi Tayo, who calls on Africa to modernize as an urgent consideration. So let us consider what constitutes the modern. Firstly, it is a certain idea of what constitutes public affairs and how they are to be negotiated. Peter Heke's 1975 work on Africa's two publics is instructive. There, in that work, he tells us about how Africa remains committed to the idea of separating what is going to constitute public and modern affairs from the primacy of primordial concerns. As long as African thinking is locked at the level of primordial privileging, development, progress, modernity, and the mental attitude that is consistent with them will always be problematic. Secondly, it's a specific attitude towards science. Very, very specific attitude towards science. Ali Mazrui tells us that other nations have been to the moon and back, while Africa is still trying to get back to the village. This idea that our thinking is still peppered with traditionalistic commitments, veneration of mental attitudes that were constitutive of traditional African societies is a very big hindrance. We could even have moments of science on the African commitment, but on the African continent, but our commitment to them is not serious. This is my last slide. 3 systems of governance. Efeni Menkiti asks this question: what is the purpose of the African state? And I think that question must be taken up seriously. Why does the African state exist? What distinctive idea of statecraft can be found in Africa? In fact, Africans now to admire coups and offer justifications for them, because that has become part and parcel of our state. Look at social media, how Ibrahim Traore is popularized. Is not in control of 40% of his country. Speaks to how we think how we should be. Universities exist. What is there? People out of their station to another station. And finally, development. How does Africa think of development both as a mental and material condition of progress? Is there a serious commitment to think through development as a mental orientation? The many works that I've read on development do not seem to appear to take this seriously. I see Dr. Chimakona wants me to disappear now, which I'll do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this interesting lecture. And thank you to all the previous speakers. So